Recording progress.
Well, hello. I'm here for another soul searching on how I got out of a toxic relationship and how you can too. So the thing is, I spent a lot of time thinking through the depths of the dysfunction. And at the end of that journey of thinking through, I must admit, like most women, I had this deep sense of embarrassment, of shame, that kind of was always bubbling up at the surface every time I had the opportunity to share it or speak it or admit it to anybody who actually knew half of what was going on, like close friends and family. I would polish it somewhat or say it not too bad or say it in a way that disguised the full extent of the dysfunction, or even worse, I would protect his image. That's a big one, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You could admit a whole bunch of things about yourself, but it's hard to accept, to admit that the guy that you hold in high esteem, that you put on a pedestal, and perhaps the guy that a lot of people, close friends, relatives, were trying to warn you about, turned out to be exactly the loser that they said he was. That's a tough place to be. So I hide behind this facade that, number one, what I went through, that's too dirty to air. I can't air my dirty laundry. And then the other thing is, well, you know, I'm probably the only one that ever went through this. And all of this made sense to me until I took a seminar with the great Tony Robbins. And within that 5-day series, something triggered for me that said, I think the core of his teaching was how to turn your mess into a message, right? And I'm kind of hearing this for the first time and being awoke to the possibility of sharing, and in so doing, sort of shifting the narrative from me as a victim to me as a teacher, so I could help teach and guide other women that is in denial in a dysfunctional relationship, how they can start to get dislodged and take back their power. But with the embarrassment always, 2 feet away, it was a difficult decision. So then the other option I had was, well, maybe I will, have somebody else tell my story so that I could still protect his identity and mine. But then after soul searching and really understanding the message that I learned in the Tony Robbins 5-day challenge, I realized that I, and I alone, can own and tell my story. I am the only person who could tell my story in the truth and the clarity that only I know how it happened and when it happened and only I can tell that story. So here we go. I'm telling. So I am on a trip to Trinidad, and I find out I'm actually on, let's start that again. I'm on a trip to Trinidad, and my niece is a lawyer, and I go to work with my niece, and she, she's doing her research, but I'm on vacation. So I'm sort of just walking around her office, checking things out. And I asked her what she was doing. And she said, oh, I'm doing a research. I said, on what? And she said, oh, she's having a case tomorrow, and she does divorce, and she's representing the wife. And as a typical practice of lawyers, they do all the research to see what the opponent is up to, the husband, right? Because the more evidence you have, obviously, is the better prepared or equipped you have in your case. Makes sense. So I said, so what are you doing? Why are you on the computer? Because I'm not thinking research is going to be about her, the husband is going to be on the computer, right? And she said, oh, I have this special software that I run, and that gives you everything that you need to know about a person. I said, for real? And she said, yes. And it's pretty accurate. I said, no, how is that accurate? And she said, yeah, it's very accurate. It tells you everything you need to know about a person. So here I am jokingly saying to myself, well, we could get to the bottom of this because I know my boyfriend. I know everything about him. I lived with him for 18 years at this time. So go ahead, put his name down. Now, I'm not telling her that in any facetious way because I know him and he's as squeaky clean as they come. And she puts his name in. There it was. And the report took about 4 minutes to run. And then it came back and she handed me the report. The report was like 34 pages. Listen, that thing had all kinds of information, but most of it didn't really make sense to me. So I'm arguing with her, well, this can be so, this can be so. No, he doesn't do this. He didn't own this. He's listed as owning property, a house or whatever. No, that can't be him because I know him. I've lived in the same house with the guy for all these years. I know exactly his finance and what he does and what he doesn't do and his tax return. I'm the one who prepared it. So I know everything. Except she insisted. And I said, well, okay. I gave in. And I said to myself, well, I know me. So let me prove to her that this software can be correct. Because the same amount of BS it brought up with him, it's going to do the same things to me. So put my name in. And there it was. 4 minutes later, the thing spits out even more information. But this time, as I read through it, it was like a perfect documentation of my life. The first day I stepped off a plane in Kennedy Airport in 1976. Every credit card I ever owned, every address I ever lived at, every phone number I ever had, every bill I was attached to, everything, every degree I ever took, every certificate I ever took. I mean, this thing went on and on. Every medical emergency I had, all the bills I had. And I'm like, but wait a minute. The thing went so fast to tell me that I own 2 properties in St. Croix. And it was true. And I'm saying, yeah, but this is true. This is all my material. As a matter of fact, there are things in here I had forgotten. And it was all there. And I said, well, wait a minute. So that means all this stuff about him is true. And boy, that started to unfold like a ton of brick over my head. Because here I was on vacation, should be having a good time. And now I'm faced with the reality of the level of deceit I was living with. It turns out that my loved one was really never mine, because all the documentation showed that he was married, showed the date he was married, the time he was married. It showed the address he now lived. It showed phone number of him and his wife. It showed the bills they had together. It showed everything, that a complete life outside of me. Now just imagine what that felt like. I was like on a daze. How could this be possible? How is this possible? Wow, this is amazing. So I sort of walked through like a zombie the next 2 weeks on the vacation, because now I'm preparing what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say, what's my next move. I'm going to ask him to leave the house. What's going to happen? And all the turmoil and drama now that I now have to figure out, because I can't ignore this. And so I came back prepared with all the ifs and buts and whens of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to handle it. And if it got this bad, I'm going to do this. And I really spent a lot of time in my own head and heart trying to digest what I just learned about the man that I love, about the man I trusted, and about the man who had a separate life. I came home, but something told me the minute I walked in the door, June, don't say a single word. Don't, just shut up. Just shut up. And so we went on for like 3 weeks like this. June doing her thing, acting like nothing happened, but knowing in my heart and waiting for some glimmer, some glimpse of honesty to seep out of him. And sometimes I would sort of drop little hints, but he wasn't budging, because in his world, his little secrets were well protected, well disguised, and there was no need to share. Now, you may be wondering, why? Why? What is he still doing at your house? He's married. Well, the thing is, his new shiny object lived in Brooklyn, where he spent most of his time working in St. Croix. So when he's in Brooklyn, he goes home to a wife. And when he is in St. Croix, he comes home to a soft place to land. Everything's perfect. I don't know, and God knows what she knows, but his world is complete. He got it going on. He has it exactly, his life is exactly planned out the way he wanted it. So about 3 weeks later, he's getting dressed. And he says to me, oh, I'm going to Brooklyn. And I said, why? And he said, to play cricket. And I said, to play cricket? No, you're not going to play cricket. You're going there because you have a family there. And you know that was the beginning right there. So after going back and forth, he tried to convince me that there is no family, and what are you talking about, and who told you that nonsense, and this is you're only listening to people, and what the hell, and why are you gossiping, and oh my goodness, again, my fault, right? My fault that I gossip somewhere, and that's why I have this information. But none of this is true, except I know it's true. So I started to give him all the documentation of what I know to be true. And when he was cornered and there was nothing else that he could deny, he looked at me with such scorn and he said, yeah, you know so much. That's how much you know. I've been married for 3 years now. So I wasn't done. So I decided I needed to continue this discussion. So I drove him to the airport and dropped him off at the airport so he could go on his lovely cricket trip. But something happened as I was driving off. I noticed him going to the departure gate. I could see him in my rearview mirror, skipping, floating. And I stopped. And I said, oh my God, wow, he is so beautiful. I haven't seen him so beautiful in years. He was smiling. And my God, he learned to float off the ground. He was just floating through life because he had the perfect life. But as I started the vehicle and I started to move, drive off out of the airport, back home, I kept looking at myself in the mirror. And I'm saying, wait a minute, something's wrong with this movie. What's wrong here? You just witnessed a man who has built the complete life for himself. This is a happy guy. And you want him to fix himself? You want him to change? And I just kept thinking about that. I said, June, wake up. Who needs to change here? Him or you? You're the unhappy one. You are the one that's not loved and cared for and, you know, and having a wonderful life here. You're the one that feels sad and betrayed and dejected and left and abandoned. You are the one that's living in shame. You are the one that can't even open up your mouth to articulate and accept that this guy did this to you, and you want him to fix himself? So I came home, it was a Friday evening, and I walked around the house, and suddenly my emotions was being washed in quiet. Just the staying by myself for the weekend was a good thing. But something happened on Monday morning. I woke up from off the bed, sprint off the bed, and I said, June, today looks like a good day to make some decisions. And I repeated it to myself. And I said, okay, now let's deal with this. So what did I do? I'm glad you asked. I contacted the nearest place where you can store storage. Sorry, I lost the word there. The closest storage facility on the island. I went, I rented a place big enough to hold everything. I went to Home Depot. I bought 32 boxes and I came home. And I just started packing. I started packing every single thing that he owned. And I neatly packed them up, labeled the boxes, and took them out into the storage. Now, just think about this. I am in a relationship that's supposed to be a good, stable relationship. And most of my friends are his friends. And most of his friends are my friends. So if I tell anybody or ask anybody for help to execute my next move, in no time they will call him. So I didn't know how to proceed except by myself. So I proceeded by myself. I knew that he was going for an extended period. I knew he wouldn't be back for a week. So I decided within that week, I had to make my move to free myself from this level of toxicity. And so after I packed up everything and put it in a storage, by day 3, I went to the local newspaper and I put the house up for rent. So all my stuff, what couldn't fit in my 2 suitcases, I also packed it up, went to Salvation Army, and gave away everything I owned. I was no longer going to be attached to the things that made me who I am, the things I had collected all these years that I had identified myself to be. So I was in this strange place that demanded I disrupt everything. I was throwing over the apple cart in all areas of my life that week. By the end of that week, I had no home because I rented the whole thing. I had no stuff because I gave away everything. I had no man because I got rid of him. I was on the run. I took whatever I could take, all my important things, put it in a suitcase, and headed out. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have any plans about what I'm going to do next. All I know was this small window of opportunity was mine to make full advantage of. He was not here, and I could do me now. I left him a Dear John letter, and I gave it to some friendly hands where I know he's going to get it. I took his vehicles and left it at the mechanic and told them that he was going to call and he needed some work done on his vehicles. I couldn't give them any instruction, but he will let them know when he comes. And once I was on the plane and I was safe and I landed in another country, I hit send to his email on the hopes that he would read it before he comes back home. And sure enough, he did. So that was the end of our relationship. Now, not everybody hearing this or listening to this who find themselves in a similar situation can respond the way I did. But I had no choice. My only choice was drastic. Those were my only choice. I was left with no other choice but drastic. Here I was with someone who have betrayed me at the depths that any woman would want. As a matter of fact, most women can't even survive this. And I couldn't even get a good answer from him. All his concerns were that I must have been gossiping. That's why I know this. So I'm the problem now because I gossip too much. I never gossip with anybody. I don't have friends that I discuss him with. Because as I told you, all his infractions were an embarrassment. Because I told myself, I make good choices. Yeah, all the little hints that family and friends might have dropped for me as breadcrumbs, I didn't pick it up because I know what I'm doing. He's a good guy. I could vouch for that. Except at the end of the day, I was sitting with the enemy inside the house, so to speak. I am not saying that your circumstances look exactly like mine and you should do what I did. But what I'm saying is at some point, you are the one that has to make the move. You're the one that's miserable, right? Just like I was. He was happy. Why was I waiting on a happy man to give up his happiness? That's ludicrous what we do. We beg, we connive, we beg some more. We become little bitches. We angry, we sad. We don't even dress nice anymore. And forget about sex. You don't even want anybody touch you. You're ready to go off the rails. This is the life you have now built for yourself. And you want change. You want things to change, but you're not willing to do any of the changes yourself. You want him to fix himself. You want him to adjust. You want him to come back home nice and, and pretty and all cleaned up in the mess that he has as his life. But I'm here to tell you, don't expect it. It's never going to happen. In order for things to change, you must change. Because the years of dysfunction, the years that you have been eyewitness to, the evidence was always plastered on your damn wall, just like it was plastered on mine. Every late night, every time he was supposed to be here, but he wasn't. Every trip that he took and he didn't invite you. Every time he made vacation plans, which most people do as family, and you were nowhere to be seen because he didn't even tell you until he was ready for the ride to the airport. All of that was always present in my house, just as it is in yours. So my message to you is wake up for transformation, for change. You are responsible for that, my dear. You get to decide how you want people to treat you. You get to decide that, not him. And until you don't get that straight, you're going to constantly be making adjustment for their bullshit behavior. You're going to constantly be making excuses. Excuses as to why you can't leave. Oh, it's the kids. Oh, it's the bank account. Oh, it's a house. Oh, it's the family, what they would say. Oh, the big one, what people would say. It's the embarrassment. What else can you come up with that allows you to fit so nicely and stay in dysfunction? That's what this work is about. You know, I tell a lot of stories about my personal experience, not to bash the guy, really, honestly. If I could tell the story without even going there, I would. But my story is not complete without the full picture of the dysfunction that I allowed. I allowed. And in order to get past it, I had to come clean as to the level of toxicity that I was willing to put up with. And the day that I decided that I was going to take responsibility for how I want to live was the day everything changed. Everything. That was the day. I want you, though, to start thinking through areas in your life that you could start implementing those small changes. I'm not telling you pick up and leave like a mad woman like June did, but there are things you can do. There are areas in your life you can take back the reign of power that you have given him. Yes, there are. But you have to be willing to be honest and brutal with yourself. Okay, this work requires some introspection and some self-analysis and some self-responsibility and some pride in yourself. Stand up, put your shoulders back, and let's soar to the woman of power that you were meant to be. I thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I thank you for stepping into the transformation of your own life. Step by step, let's go. Let's do the dirty work of dislodging and freeing yourself from a relationship that no longer served you. Thank you.